Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this First Nations information session. My name is Casey La Rochelle. I'm zooming in today from Sanemo territory in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, and I'm from the Kitimat Band. Looking forward to listening to the presentations and all the sharing and questions and comments. This session will be recorded like we do all the other ones, and we'll put it on our webinar playlist. So people who can't make it today can watch it. And then you can also download all the presentations and the agendas from that website after we upload the recording. And before we start, just a reminder, we're having another First Nations information session on May 28th, and it will be on drought resiliency from 1:30 to 3:30 on May 28th. And I put it in the chat along with my email if people haven't received an invitation to that. As we do with all of our information sessions, I'll call around people on screen. If you can briefly explain, introduce yourself and explain the position you have in your community and any questions that you might have or an expectation that you might have about this information session. So I will start with Leslie. I know you're presenting, but if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Casey. So I'm Leslie McDonald. I live in Gibsons, and I'm currently a consultant for the BC Agriculture Council, and I also do some training through the JI Justice Institute in British Columbia. So I go around the province and train in Indigenous and non-Indigenous First Nation communities on EOC operations. And I'm looking to learn from all of you about what could be what is of interest for you around agriculture emergencies and any other things that you think might be useful to have more available. So thank you, Casey.
Thank you. Graham Knox. Graham, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Graham Knox, and I'm the Director of the Emergency Management Branch for the BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I'm interested in learning more of the needs of our First Nations and working collaboratively with you to ensure we can support you in the best way possible when emergencies occur and impact your agricultural activities. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. And Wendy from Finesse, and my thanks to Wendy for connecting me to the people for this session. It was a good prompt.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy. I'm a preparedness supervisor with Finesse. I do support the Emergency Operations Center training in person and online, and then coordinating that support and information that'll be shared today with that resource in your emergency plans and programming when we talk about tabletop exercises and who should be in that space. So I just say thank you to Leslie and the team there for stepping in and supporting this on a bigger scale as well to get that support in the EOCs. Thanks, Casey.
You're very welcome. Clint Williams, good as always to have Notsamot here.
Hey there, good afternoon. Clint Williams with the Notsamot Tribal Council. We provide support and advisory services to 10 different bands, 8 on Vancouver, well, I guess about 7 on Vancouver Island and 3 on the mainland. I'm not really from a real large community with farmers and whatnot, but I know that some of the communities that we support do have a number of different types of farms around there. So just interested today in kind of learning any support and services that may be handy should an incident or event happen in some of these areas, just to help support our member nations wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. Allison Lohman with Finesse.
Oh, sorry, mute. Good afternoon, Allison Lohman. Yes, with Finesse. I primarily support with supporting the development of emergency plans, and that includes the emergency response plans. So this agricultural component will definitely feed into that. So I'm really looking forward to learning some more.
And can you give the 10-second blurb on the HRVA survey?
Oh, the disaster risk reduction survey that, yes, the third, we sent out the third today as we realized that our cutoff date was too short. So I can put a link into the chat if that would be acceptable, or I did blanket it out today as well into different regions. We've got some amazing responses from particularly 3 regions. So we're a little shy on a couple of other regions. So we're prompting hopefully to get some more responses, and eventually we'll put it together into a report that will be shared out to communities, and it'll be a regional approach. Nothing by any personal community will be divulged. It's completely a regional approach, but it's supposed to help support with funding opportunities and seeing where the challenges are, but also where the successes are within communities.
Awesome. If you could put a link in your contacts in the chat, that would be super.
All righty. Thanks, Casey.
Kevin Idoga Wong from FNHA. Super awesome to see FNHA here.
Yes, hi there. Yep. I'm the operations specialist, health emergency management from the interior region. Super excited to be here and just learn more about how we can support communities better. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
And sorry, yep, speaking to you today from my office here in Kamloops, traditional ancestral territory, Tecumseh, Saskatchewan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Aina Rupar Peacegood.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Anna Rupar Peacegood. I'm the Senior Program Developer for Indigenous Food Systems with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I'm the Program Lead for the BC Indigenous Pathfinder Service. So I'm here to listen and learn and make sure that I have a good understanding of the content today. So when and if communities reach out through the BC Indigenous Pathfinder Service, I can help guide them to the appropriate people who are supporting this work. I'm calling in today from the traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Cameron Liliwa.
Hello. I'm calling in from Imaya Valley, Hanikotin. I'm the EPC of this community, and we have a couple of farms here and one cattle farm here. So I'm just here to listen and learn.
Thank you, Cameron. Grant Mayers.
Hello, everybody. My name is Grant Myers. I'm the Emergency and Safety Manager for the Musqueam Indian Band. What I'm looking forward to get out of this session is we have one of our reserves in Delta, and we plan on turning it into agricultural farmland. So I'm looking to get ahead of the curve here and learn as much as I can from this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Roy Spinks. Good to see you, Roy. I hope you and the others are doing well in Lytton.
Yes, thank you, Casey. Once again, my name is Roy Spinks. I'm the implementation manager for Lytton First Nation. I've also been an EOC team member since 2020 with the pandemic response. I've been on the EOC team for the 2021 wildfire, the 2022 wildfire, 2023 wildfire. Didn't do anything for 2024, but I joined in because as an implementation manager, we are actively working on trying to reinvigorate our agricultural lands and orchards. We have a greenhouse and garden crew that I supervise, and during the 2021 fire, everybody got evacuated. There's no power, there's no communication, and yet one of our crew members actually stayed behind, kept the water running in the ditches, and survived on fish and vegetables. Also, we have a lot of impact on our water ditch lines. We have ditch flumes and timbers to support it. And actually, the
when the wildfires come through, even years after, we're starting to see failures in the ditches. So hoping that we can, we are actively looking for grants, but it's pretty hard to secure them. Oh yeah, and just wondering too, like I'm just wondering about our like for our the one guy that stayed behind. I mean, I'm hoping that we can actually secure a sat phone or something like that. Just because I didn't even know he stayed behind. Everybody else in Lytton evacuated, and I didn't find out until some people went back, and then they got the information out through social media. Also, we're trying to secure funding to finish off our Yakum Food Hub, which is all going to be directly related to the agricultural industry and traditional foods as well. And with the delays from the wildfires, etc., everything's costing more just to get to the close up. Thank you.
And in addition, Lytton is rebuilding, right?
Yes, we are. Oh
Yeah.
boy, yeah. Um, I don't want to guess, but I'm hoping that we're going to be moving back into our home downtown this year. But knock on wood, I'll wait until they give us the word. But
Fingers crossed.
yes.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Don Russell. Hi, Don.
Good to see everybody. Hello, my name is Dawn Russell. I'm calling into this meeting from my traditional territory in the Okanagan Syilx Nation from the Penticton Indian Reserve. I am the First Nations Leadership Council Emergency Management Coordinator and Policy Analyst, and I have had the pleasure of coordinating with the emergency personnel from the Ministry of Ag when we were doing a number of evacuations from our farm as well as communities. So there's a strong intersection when you're trying to move livestock out of an area and people at the same time. So I like the advanced coordination that Vanessa is providing in this space, and also looking at keeping animals in an area to ensure food sovereignty and security. Sometimes they get moved out of the area, and that was a food source for the people who stay behind. So it's important to kind of consider those things, and I look forward to the discussion. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Don. Emma Lee, FNHA.
Hi there. My name is Emma Lee. I'm the Regional Manager for Health Emergency Management in the Vancouver Coastal Region of the FNHA. Really happy to be joining you today from the unceded territory of the Squamish people here at our Park Royal office. And there are a couple of reasons for joining. One is to just get to know Finesse a little bit better. I think on a regional level, we haven't had as much interaction as I would have liked. And, it'd be good to start hardwiring some pathways and connections. So this is a nice space to just, get to know what you do and see your faces. So thank you for holding this space. And the second is just to learn about the supports that are being offered and to hear the questions from the other participants. So yeah, really interested to hear what is going to be discussed today. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. And have you got the invite for May 28th? FNHA is actually co-presenting in that.
Yeah, we've also circulated that out. So thank you very much.
Thank you for making the time. Ian Cunnings. Good to see you as always, Ian.
Good afternoon, Casey, you too. I'm calling in from Green Timbers today, which is on the unceded and traditional territory support me of the Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Cape Tea First Nation, and kind of overcast day here today. I'm hoping for better weather because I need to do some yard work later this evening. So, for those that don't know me, I'm the Senior Director of Regional Response for EMCR, and I get to support our regional offices in the three preocs around the province, and we'll be providing a bit of an update later this afternoon. Thanks, Casey.
You're very welcome, Ian. Dakota Castangwe.
Hey, Casey. Thanks. Yeah, my name's Dakota Castonge. I am a member of the Saptawait Cree Nation. I work for the Emergency Planning Secretariat as the Community Support Coordinator. We support 31 mainland Coast Salish communities. So I am here today to just observe and take back anything useful I can to the communities that we support. Thanks so much for having me today.
You're very welcome. Good to see your organization here. Robert Cosma, TNG. Hey, Robert.
Hey, Casey. Thanks for the invite today. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to jump out here at 2 o'clock. I have another meeting, but I am Robert Cosma. I'm the Emergency Service Coordinator Manager for the Sokoteen National Government here based in Williams Lake, and I help support 6 Sokoteen communities. Just here to listen, and hopefully I catch some of the presentation today. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. And you can also watch the recording on the playlist too. I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this from EMCR. Uncle Mogla.
Thanks, Casey. Very close. Anshul Mogla. I'm from EMCR, as you said. I'm calling in from unceded to Kamloops to Secwepemc territory, and I am a manager in the policy and legislation branch of EMCR. So I'm here today really to listen and learn, hear from folks about what's happening on the ground, questions that you're trying to work through so we can try to have that reflected in policy and in legislation where we're able to. So thank you for having me. Yeah, back over to you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Hiamara O'Brien.
Hi, Casey. Hi, are you there?
Yeah, you can introduce yourself.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you here. And hi, everybody. My name is Hiamara O'Brien. I am one of the regional climate resiliency coordinators. I work in the coastal area of BC. I'm here to support communities that are trying to identify funding opportunities or connections, organizations, or climate related capacity building or training. Yeah, I'm here to support. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Hiamara. Jerry from Coquitlam First Nation. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
You're quite garbled.
Hello?
Yep, still pretty garbled, at least on my end.
I'm Jerry Bonilla, representing Coquitlam First Nation, Community Infrastructure Senior Manager, and Emergency Program Coordinator. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks, Jerry, and feel free to put any questions in the chat or comments, and I'll monitor because I think your sound's pretty sketchy. Jeremiah Lewis.
Great, thanks for the invite. I'm just happy to hear some new ideas on how to move forward with some agricultural stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Sabrina Elliott, Cowichan Tribes. If you'd like to introduce yourself and any questions you have about the session. And we can circle back. And I think I've called upon everyone. If I've missed anyone, maybe raise your hand or just jump right in and introduce yourself. And if not, I would like to turn it over to Leslie for agenda topic number 2. Leslie, if you want to screen share your presentation, that would be great.
Thank you, Casey. So I will attempt to share this. And let's see, share. Okay, now are you seeing?
You're good.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, thanks, Casey. Whew. Okay, so I guess I wanted to talk to you about this project and why we're doing it. I think we're all aware that there's been a lot of emergency events in the last few years, and when you're talking about farming, agriculture, often, the events we're dealing with, wildfires and other things like that, flooding, it often has a huge impact for agriculture. And so, we're seeing these needs arising from the events and, trying to figure out better ways to fill some of the gaps that we're seeing. And so one of the things that the BC Agriculture Council has been doing, and the council is a umbrella organization for a whole bunch of different producer associations around the province. The BC Cattlemen's Association, BC Dairy, Poultry, Pork, Horse Council, honey producers. And basically, they've all got together and recognized there's just a need for being able to provide better support than what we've had in the past. And, there's a lot of work. This is evolving and moving forward, but it's really about trying to address some of the gaps that we're seeing and, working closely with Graham and his group, who are a fairly new group, and the work that they're doing. And so what we want to talk about is some of the resources that are out there. I'm looking to hear as well where you see there may still be some gaps, and how can we start to move this forward to help producers and agriculture. So, I think the stories that we've heard about impacts from floods and, landslides and whatnot they're really hard. They're really, really hard. And we've heard about people who have been impacted, and there have been a lot of lessons learned. But, I think moving forward, working together, I think there's a lot more opportunity to try to help out with things. So I did want to acknowledge too that I live in Gibsons, and I'm on the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish Nation and the traditional keepers of their land. And I have to do a plug for the funding that the BC Agriculture Council received, and they were able to get financial support from the province of BC through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. And that what my opinions expressed today are not those necessarily of the Investment Agriculture Foundation or the government of BC. So I just wanted to get us all on the same page here. We're talking about agriculture, food sovereignty came up in the introductions, which is great. And I think what, we're really looking at here is the whole continuum around raising animals, crops, community gardens, managing and harvesting traditional foods and medicines. And all of these can be affected by emergencies. And these are really, really important to all our communities. And so what we're really looking at moving in the discussion today is talking about all of these things. So when I'm saying agriculture or farmers, we're looking at it from a very, very broad perspective here. And so, climate change and increasing weather extremes will have a major impact on all of the work to raise food. And, it has economic impacts, but it also has cultural impacts and environmental impacts. So it's important to understand, what we can do to help reduce some of these impacts. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about is something called an agriculture coordinator. And what we've been finding is that whether it's a regional district, a nation, or a municipality, it seems that many people that now work in an emergency operations center no longer have the farm or ranch experience that people would have had, maybe 30 years ago, because many more people grew up on farms. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also seeing more and more emergency events that are hitting agriculture hard. And so the idea is to have somebody who understands farming, who's engaging in something which is a fairly new role called the agriculture coordinator role in the EOC. And so as a nation, obviously you are in charge of how you're responding and what that looks like. And what we're finding so far from some of the initial work is that in your EOC, it often can make sense to have an agriculture coordinator linked in your operations section, because a lot of this work can become quite operational. And so that's where we think it can fit well. But in some cases, if there's really just information sharing, this agriculture coordinator role could fit in with the liaison function as well. And so this agriculture coordinator role basically is a person that can reach out to those people who are managing pastures or crops or community gardens and provide information about what's happening with the event, and link them to resources that might be available, and understand the needs that people might have in an event. And so one of the things that's really, really helpful is that if you can get an approved EAF from EMCR, Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, through the pre-OC, you can bring in an agriculture coordinator on a contract, and that would be an eligible response expense, so that the cost for that contractor would be something covered off like that. And so these agriculture coordinators, why are they helpful? They can provide that information to producers in your area and then coordinate with neighboring jurisdictions on things like maybe providing facilities for livestock. If there's rodeo grounds around there, maybe you can use a neighboring jurisdiction's area for housing animals. Or maybe you want to coordinate access if there's only a certain amount of liners in the area. How are you going to coordinate that? They can also inform and work with BC Wildfire Service through various channels if there are perhaps special areas that need to be protected, maybe areas where you've got traditional foods or medicines that are harvested. And so that BC Wildfire doesn't perhaps push a fire break through that area because they might not be aware of that. And another thing, what we're finding too, is that Indigenous-owned cattle may be located on off-reserve land or Crown Range. And so this would be another jurisdiction that's outside of your nation's EOC. And so we will talk a little bit about the livestock relocation component here. But if you are looking to relocate your livestock because of an emergency event, there is support available, but it does have specific requirements. And one of the conditions of this is that the policy can come into effect during an evacuation alert stage. So the thing is, though, is that if these animals are not within the jurisdiction of your EOC, you cannot put that evacuation alert on for those animals. You're going to need to coordinate with that jurisdiction that can put on an evacuation alert and say, hey, we've got cattle up there, they need to be moved. Can you put an evacuation alert on there so that we can get the support? So again, that kind of coordination and being, the awareness for the other jurisdictions, perhaps that there are animals maybe grazing somewhere that they wouldn't know about. Okay, so that kind of coordination can be super helpful. And so it may make sense in your EOC to have an agriculture coordinator if you've got a fair bit of farming activity going on. And perhaps you may not need one because maybe you don't have a lot, but it's important to know that maybe that there's another jurisdiction will have an agriculture coordinator in their EOC, that this is becoming a position now that we're starting to see become filled a bit more often during events. And so, perhaps you can reach out to that agriculture coordinator if it makes sense to get information. So again, depending on your needs, maybe just being aware that there can be agriculture coordinators out there. And so you might ask, well, how do we find these agriculture coordinators? So the BC Agriculture Council received funding to start training a bunch of people last fall, and there are now 59 people who've had the training, and 36 of those have come forward willing to be deployed into various regions of British Columbia. And so currently, jurisdictions can access an agriculture coordinator through the BC Agriculture Council, and they're coordinating with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food to ensure that this role, as it shifts out of BC Agriculture Council, moves into the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. And Graham will talk to us more about that, I'm sure, later. But this is where you can access the names of people who are able to come in and work on a contract in your EOC. So these folks are out there. We did the training starting last year, and we are going to be doing some more training at the end of May as well. And I'm also compiling a list of people who would like to apply to take another training course. And if there's enough interest, we can run an online session and have it focused perhaps more on Indigenous agriculture coordinators and maybe more needs of nations, to be more specific to that. So if you're interested, or if you know of individuals who have got experience in agriculture and who would be a good fit in your EOC, who understand that whole side of it as well, I can definitely follow up and assist them with the application process. And part of that process, we might be able to include a training per diem for people to take the training sessions. So that is the agriculture coordinator. It's a fairly new role, but we're seeing that it can really help to develop that connection and really smooth out a lot of issues as communities go into emergencies and get that support and connection for farms that are on the ground. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, or we can wait till the end, but I just wanted to make sure that I covered a lot there, and it's definitely a valuable addition, and it is definitely evolving as well. But think about if it could be useful for your community. Roy?
Yes, hello. Really excited about a new position on the EOC team. When I think about external agriculture coordinator coming in, I think about the 2021 wildfire. We actually did have cattle trucks come in trying to help the cattle ranchers on the west side, and the west side is only accessible by limited ferry, so we couldn't haul cattle across that little ferry. And the west side road going from Lytton to Lillooet is really windy and narrow, and the cattle truck got stuck on a bridge, and stuff like that. If we can connect the agriculture coordinator to local knowledge, I don't know if there is shorter cattle vehicles available. Have been a lot more efficient, and yeah, it took a while to get the trailer unstuck.
Absolutely, and I think that's a huge learning, Roy. Absolutely, and the idea of bringing in agriculture coordinators is trying to have them establish a relationship with the nation or the regional district, whoever they're going to want to work with, and hopefully people who can build on that local knowledge to really make sure that what you're going to do makes sense, that you know how to communicate with the people in the area, you understand things. And so, yeah, and so that's one of the reasons that these agriculture coordinators, there's a bit of application process to bring in people who've got that background and who've got some of that that connection, so that they're going to be good fits for coming in. Yeah, there's as you say, there's so many things that can be challenged.
So I know that there is training available. I've taken it. Haven't completed any of it actually, but is this going to be covered under the ops section? Like, will this be included in the further future training?
Like formal training? Well, as somebody who works with the JI, I definitely am going to be talking to them about saying, yes, we need to include this in there, because it, yeah, it should be part of this, the basic piece for sure. So, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the ag coordinator is a fairly big resource that can be available. And as I mentioned, you can identify people locally that could work in, or if you haven't got anybody locally, you can bring other people in the contract. And one of the things that you could do, as well as if you did bring somebody in on a contract who's had some training, they could certainly work with people from your staff and help them get mentored up too, to start taking on some of those roles going forward as well. So lots of opportunities that way. But wanted to mention the another role that the BC Cattlemen's has worked on and put together, called the Rancher Liaison Officer. And if you want to access a local Rancher Liaison Officer, you can go through the BC Cattlemen's, and you can also go through the pre-OC, and Graham will probably talk about that, but his staff are in the pre-OCs, where they can provide a lot of resources to your agriculture coordinators, or if you don't have one, through your operations section chief. And these liaison officers are a really amazing resource, because they're in a tactical role, they're on the ground, and they're that conduit between the BC Wildfire Service folks, right, who are actually, right on the ground there, and ranchers that are within an active wildfire area. So they're kind of a go-between, and they can share information about what BC Wildfire is doing, let ranchers know about what's happening. And then coming on the way back, they can also provide information about what ranchers are seeing, or what issues they have, or maybe some knowledge that they have that's really useful for the Wildfire Service. So they can be that go-between to share important information, to assist in anything related to when you're dealing with wildfires, and especially in ranch lands. So it's a good resource. And if you're an agriculture coordinator in the EOC, one of your roles would be to talk to the Rancher Liaison Officer and make sure that you're coordinating and sharing information, so that you can both get your work done and keep people informed. One of the things I think that really helps with the Rancher Liaison role is that this is ranchers talking to ranchers, and so there's a lot of trust between them for sharing information. And so, yeah, and I don't know if some of you know TJ Wacom. He's actually a Rancher Liaison who is part of that program as well.
Hi, Leslie. We have a question in the chat. Do we use an EAF or resource request for this position? And will this position be able to source trucks and trailers to move livestock?
Great question. So to start out with, yes, if you've identified that you want to bring in an agriculture coordinator into your EOC, fill out an EAF to ensure that you can get that approved by the pre-OC, explain what you need, how long for, and then you can be talking to the BC Agriculture Council to get the names of people that might be able to come into your region. But get it approved from EMCR through the EAF process. And then once you've got somebody in there, they can definitely, track down those resources of liners that might be available. They can work with the pre-OC and the Ministry of Ag staff to get resources and to coordinate. So they can do that and so much more.
Thank you. Dawn, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. And this is relating to the question that I just asked about the EAF and the resource request, quite often, because of the shared territory that we're in, we all don't want to be fighting for the 30 liaison officers that are trained and staffed up in the province. Plus, there's like 7 communities and 3 First Nations. So it's like, do we, as the First Nation, leave the liaison officer or the coordinator with the regional district and share that liaison officer, coordinate through that liaison officer, or are we each trying to get our own? Because I don't want to tap out a nation or a community or a region because everybody's got to have their own. So is there an internal structure to the Ministry of Ag support that ensures widespread coverage without overlapping and kind of competing resources?
Great question, Dawn. So, I think it's going to, like, as there's so many different types of situations that can arise. And I think the question that I would have for your EOC is that, is there a lot of need for maybe livestock relocation, or is there going to be a lot of communication that we need to do with our farmers and making sure that they're fully aware of what's happening and we're understanding what the needs are? And so, I think if the answer to that is that yes, there is quite a need, then I would say you probably do want to bring an agriculture coordinator in. If you have if you're in an area where there's maybe less agriculture that's going on, yeah, putting the agriculture coordinator in the regional district, EOC, and then coordinating from there can make an awful lot of sense. So these are things I would definitely talk to with neighboring jurisdictions about, what could work. And then, situations are going to arise where it might make sense to do one thing, but then another time you're going to try something different. And there's definitely that flexibility, and you're going to be in charge of your own EOC and how you want to work on it. But I really do. I like how you're talking and thinking about the partnerships and working together and coordinating, because that is very, very powerful to share those kind of resources that way.
Thanks. Can I ask just one more follow-up related to that? So we have these, and it says right on the screen that it's a tactical role and that we would be coordinating through the pre-OC. And I'm wondering, is there funding for advanced preparation in Ministry of Ag for some of that local on the ground knowledge chasing, so that we know how many trucks and trailers we're going to need, how much impact will there be if a wildfire goes through K Mountain or something like that, so that it's not just tactical, we need all hands on deck. It's we need 30 trailers and we need this type of response, so that it's more of a targeted response and not a buckshot kind of role.
Okay, I'll start out, and I think maybe there might be other people that can join in, but what I'll say 2 things. Firstly, that I think what you've identified, Dawn, is really important about that pre-planning and, having your emergency plan. Bring in agriculture and really think about what are those potential needs that you might have, and having resource lists for different resources that you might require. And so thinking and understanding about the needs for all the kinds of agriculture that you might have in your community, and pre-planning, identifying where these locations are in your community, and really putting that work in ahead of time. And I'm not going to be able to really talk about funding available for that. Maybe I'll ask someone else to do that. So that's a really, really important thing. And then I think the other thing too is, if you're maybe aren't that familiar with doing livestock relocation, and you don't necessarily know how many trailers you need or how many animals fit in a trailer, you can go and get that resource and support through the Ministry of Agriculture folks in the pre-auc. And also you can talk to the liner operators themselves, and they are really great resources for giving information. You know, you can explain how many animals you have and what kind of roads you're dealing with, and then they can guide you down that path. And I see Graham's got his hand up, so maybe, Graham, do you want to jump in?
Yes. So what I would say is one of the things we're trying to do as the Ministry of Agriculture. We obviously respect and know that local authorities and the First Nations or Indigenous governing bodies are responsible for emergency management within their area of geographic jurisdiction. So we really want to encourage local authorities and First Nations to develop as needed, depending on their particular context in their area, an agricultural component of their plan where a First Nation, a local authority would determine what are the needs, what kind of agriculture is going in here, and do that type of pre-planning that Leslie was talking about. One of the things we've recognized is this is pretty new to a lot of local authorities and First Nations, and so they haven't had the time or resources to develop an agricultural component. And so one of the reasons we've encouraged and worked with the BC Agriculture Council to develop this agricultural coordinator program is recognizing people may not have those plans in place and developed an internal capacity to serve in those agricultural roles within your EOC. So in the interim, you have this option of calling upon an agricultural coordinator to come in and provide that capacity and capability. If we get into a scenario where there's not enough resources, or so cattle liners, for instance, is the one example, what we would ask folks to do is raise that up to the pre-auc level so we can prioritize and help EMCR and others reach decisions on how to allocate the available cattle liners in this example. So that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my presentation, but when there is that resource challenge, that's when it should be elevated to the pre-auc level, and then we can work with EMC and provide agricultural advice and expertise to help prioritize and obviously look for additional resources to fill that gap. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Graham. Roy, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Casey. So when I think about trying to make pre-plans, mitigation efforts for cattle, specifically, like I'm talking about your rancher liaison officer. A couple of years back, I was picking morel mushrooms up at Scotty Creek one year, and we came into a little box canyon, and oh my God, it just broke our hearts. There was cattle skeletons there, like it looked like a big mama skeleton, and then little baby skeletons behind it, and it just broke our hearts. And trying to identify those places, like I don't know how I have no idea how cattle react to a fire, but I'm thinking they're one direction. If you can try and block off those box canyons or redirect them somewhere else or get ahead and direct them somewhere else, just for the cattle's sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy.
Some tough stories for sure out there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I thought I'd just do a little diagram here. So with your EOC, we've got your community EOC, and you maybe have an ag coordinator in there if it does make sense for you. And they're going to be linking in with the ag coordinators in other regional district or other community nation EOCs. And often finesse can be engaged in supporting your EOC. And then of course we've got the pre-auc up here, but I didn't want to give you a really little diagram with all kinds of spider webs all over it. So I'm looking more just at the site support level and the site level. So just to highlight here's our rancher liaison program for when we're dealing with wildfires, and they link very closely with the wildfire service when there's a wildfire, and they'll actually be in there as part of the incident management team's planning. And so they're right in there and able to share information and understand what is going on. And so then, of course, the links that we'll see too, the rancher liaison will talk to ranchers, as will the agriculture coordinator talking to ranchers. And if you've got an industry association, they're sometimes reaching out as well to the producers that they have in their area. So lots of coordination and linkages, communication that can happen. And it just, makes everybody, I think, more aware of what's there, and it's all more powerful for trying to deal with these kinds of situations that do emerge.
Thank you, Leslie. Just a quick time check. Whereabouts are we in the presentation? Not that I'm rushing you or anything.
Yeah, no worries. I would say about another 10. Does that work?
Yeah, we could probably squeeze 10 in.
Okay. It's more pretty high level stuff now. So one of the things we've also been working on is temporary access. So when you have an evacuation order, your EOC has obviously determined that there's areas of risk. And so one of the things that an evacuation order means is everybody needs to get out. And you're going to have perimeters for areas under evacuation order. And there's going to be guidance if you're in a wildfire from BC Wildfire Service about, where the risks are and the fact that, yes, you do need an evacuation order. And so one of the challenges when we're dealing with agriculture is that there's often animals that still need to get watered and fed. There's going to be gardens, and there's community gardens. There's going to be crops that still need to get watered, all that kind of thing. And we heard Roy talk about some of this too. So what can sometimes happen is that you can coordinate through the EOC, and the EOC can decide based on the fact that you don't always have high risk uniformly across an evacuation order area. And so the EOC can determine if they can maybe let certain people in, if they've got some really valid reasons to go in and do important things that deal with animal welfare or, major crop needs that you might have. And so we're working with EMCR and Ian, and we're working with Graham, and we're working with some other local authorities to try to come up with a template to assist with processes that are able to streamline that whole ability to allow farmers in for temporary access to deal the work they need to do and then come back out. Understanding when it's safe, when they can go in, and trying to ensure that there's parameters around the whole process to keep people safe, because that's why we have evacuation orders. So this is something that an agriculture coordinator could assist with that. If there's requests from producers, they might say, hey, I need to get into my ranch or my farm to do certain things. And the agriculture coordinator can explain that, yes, these are legitimate needs that really do need to be done, and they can maybe help to coordinate that through the EOC and assist with that process. So we're going to have some templates coming out, hopefully some point soon, that we can share as another resource for agriculture coordinators and for EOCs. So just wanted to identify that's an important tool. And the premises ID is another way to help confirm that, you do have livestock on a property. And I'll talk a bit about how that could be used in allowing temporary access from the EOC. Okay. I'm going to talk briefly about relocating livestock, and I think Graham's going to talk a little bit more about it. So, Graham, can I just introduce the concept and then you'll go into more detail? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I was anticipating Ian would talk about it since it's an EMCR policy. But yeah, happy to have you introduce it. And hopefully me and Ian can augment as needed.
Sure, that sounds great. So we'll get started on the concept of livestock relocation, and then when we hear from Ian and Graham, we'll get into a little bit more detail. The main thing I think we want to think about is that when you're in an emergency, animals can be affected. And so there's a couple of options about what you might want to do, maybe moving the animals to safer areas, or to bring them off range and bring them down somewhere that might be away from a wildfire, certainly are good options. And there is our range riders that BC Cattlemen's has that can also help assist with that process. And then sometimes it might be necessary to relocate to a buddy farm, or another location where we know it's safe. And so EMCR has a policy that they've put together that enables support during the need to relocate livestock. So you have to have a task number. And for this specific policy, you do need to be a farm business. So if you're a hobby farm, that's not necessarily going to qualify here. And I think Ian's going to give a bit more detail about some of these components related to furination. You need to be in an evacuation alert or order area. And so we talked about how if you've got animals on range and they're in a regional district or crown range, that's outside of your jurisdiction, and they'll need to put on that evacuation alert or order. And you need to have an invoice for the service. If you can move the animals yourself, great. But if you need to pay somebody to do it, there's some reimbursement that you could have. And you do have to make sure the animals go to a safe location. So this whole policy enables the relocation costs for livestock to include transportation, housing and feeding, up until a maximum of 96 hours after the evacuation order is rescinded, and then for reimbursement of your response costs incurred by the community or regional district EOC. So it's an important tool, and this is something ag coordinators have a really big role in, and they've had training on how to go through the process and support farmers through it all. So I'm just going to leave that one there, and we'll stay tuned for a bit more from Ian and Graham as they go ahead. And so then I'm just going to briefly talk about the Premises ID program. And this is something that the Ministry of Agriculture operates. And basically, Graham, if you're going to talk about this too, I shouldn't probably jump in here.
Yeah, I can talk about it if you want to move through in the interest of time.
Let's do that. Okay, we'll just go through that. And yeah, okay, just to wrap up here then, one of the things that the BC Agriculture Council program or project area is also doing is hosting emergency preparedness and resilience sessions for farms and ranches in BC. And so that's happening this year. If you are interested for your community to join a session, you can let me know, and we can actually do some online training and help to get some of that coordination happening, that information out there on this preparedness, more resiliency that you could have. AgSafe, if you've heard of them, they do a really great job in safety of if you've got farm workers, and how to stay safe during events. So they're a big part of doing these sessions. So this is an opportunity that's available if you are interested. Okay. So I will put my contact information up if you want to follow up with me. So briefly, this is kind of what we went through: the coordinator role, rancher liaison support, temporary access, and then the livestock relocation policy, which we'll get some more from Graham and Ian. Graham's going to cover Premises ID, and then these sessions are available for folks. So please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is mossfell5@telus.net. It's not 115, those are L's. Didn't think that through when I put that email together. But yeah, please reach out. I'm happy to provide support if you know, helping anybody who wants to go through the agriculture coordinator application process, get your name on, put a list together for some of that training or sessions for ranchers and farmers in your community for resilience, or if you have any other questions. So I will leave that there. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you very much. If you could stop screen sharing, perfect. Ian and Graham, you're both co-presenting the next, but I'm not sure who's going first.
So I'm happy to let Ian go ahead first and share what he's got, and then I've got a short presentation I can jump into after, if that works for you, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to share part. This won't take too long, Graham. Leslie did a great job of covering the policy, but I'm just going to provide the highlights here. So it might be, hoping the screen is large enough, Casey, and people can see it. So a couple of things further to what Leslie highlighted with our policy. One, people who are familiar with it may recall that in previous years we had what was known as a rate card, which highlighted, based on what we thought were current rates, we were able to reimburse folks for, particularly around feeding of the animals. And thanks to largely drought conditions in the province, trying to find feed, particularly hay, for the cattle at the rates that we had set out in the rate card was impossible. So last year, we actually went against policy. And I know this is being recorded, but I'll deny saying it. But we do try to make things work when we can. And with Graham's team, really agreed to go with what the market rate was for the relocation. And so that's the major change. And you'll note that it's still currently an interim policy. You can appreciate with moving to EDMA, or the Emergency and Disaster Management Act, from the old Emergency Program Act, there are a number of policies that need to be reviewed and updated, and this is one of them. But what we were able to get approval to do was lose the rate card and move to a market rate, meaning that when a farm or a local government or a nation, pardon me, submits an EAF into the pre-auc, it will be based on what you believe to be a fair market rate. The Ministry of Agriculture staff through the Ag branch, either at the pre-auc or the PEC, depending on level of activation, will review that just to ground truth it, and then we would approve the expense. So Casey, just wanted to highlight that as a major change. And then flashing up the conditions that are there. I put the policy in the link to this meeting, so it's easy for folks to find. And I'll kick it over to my friend Graham for further updates, and then we can take any questions that may be out of that. So over to you, Graham.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
maybe before I start, Ian, just wondering if you want to speak a bit to how the policy's been interpreted around non-commercial First Nations agricultural activities and community animals, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a bit of, as always, we remain open to looking at relocation of livestock, particularly for a nation where it may not meet the farm definition, but as important to the nation in itself. So we're not, again, hobby farms become problematic for us. And hobby farms, where we've been addressing the care and feeding of that, is providing support to whether it's a nation or a local authority at a reception center or group lodging site. But when it comes to relocation, particularly of cattle that may not meet the definition, or farm animals of farms, that's where we can have the conversation during the evacuation alert phase to try to work with the nation and Ministry of Agriculture on providing support there. Graham, did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so. That's great. Thanks, Ian. I just knew that would be sometimes a concern. People see the farm business and they go, oh, how does it apply to First Nations? So thanks for adding that bit.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks for the flag.
Okay, so I will start sharing here. Okay, slideshow. All right, so is everybody seeing that now?
You're good.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, thanks again. I'm Graham Knox. I'm coming to you today from the territories of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, the Lekwungen speaking peoples. So, thank you. And I just wanted to touch, I saw your question in the chat, Casey, about the title Agriculture Coordinator. So, to be clear, we chose and we worked with BCAC, BC Agriculture Council, to come up with a generic term, recognizing that depending on the Emergency Operations Center and your needs, you may put that agricultural coordinator in the liaison section of your EOC. You may have an ag branch and put them in operations. So it would then revert to the ICS terminology based on where you're plugging them in. We've just used that terminology, ag coordinator, as a generic term, and the person could go into any of the ICS positions depending on your particular needs in a particular incident. So I'll just start by kind of going over some of our roles here. So the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and I refer to us as AF here. So when you see that acronym, that's what I'm talking about. We're the designated lead provincial role for animal diseases, plant diseases, and pest outbreaks that impact agriculture. So that's set out in EDMA and the regulations. So that's our ministry's assignment to lead those hazards, and then we support any other hazard when agriculture is impacted. So obviously, agriculture is diverse and very much across the province. So just about any other hazard will impinge on agricultural activities, and we're here to support the local authorities, First Nations, and our partners across the provincial ministries and the coordinating agency, Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. We take a four pillars approach to emergency management. So we're looking from prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Within our particular ministry, so I'm the director of the Emergency Management Branch, and I help provide leadership and coordination across the ministry. My branch in particular, we focus primarily on two pillars, the preparedness and the response. And then we work with various other branches and units in the ministry to deliver other core services in support of emergency management. So we have an animal health lab where testing and surveillance for animal diseases, plant diseases, pest outbreaks. We have a business risk management branch that offers a bunch of different insurance or similar related products that can be used in recovery. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also access individuals from across the ministry, either on based on that person's position, or we also have another group of volunteers that we train in the incident command system and provide us additional surge capacity. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So again, this just goes over the lead hazard roles, so the livestock, poultry, and disease events. So for example, we've been dealing with high pathogen, high pathogenicity, avian influenza over the last several seasons that comes with the wild birds and spreads into the domestics. We assist with any agriculture-related disease events and pest outbreaks. And again, this is focused not on wildlife, for instance, where we would work and support other provincial ministries that manage wildlife. So really here we're talking about agricultural activities. So in terms of support roles, obviously, as I mentioned, any hazard that impacts agriculture, commonly flooding and fire, we can assist and work with the local authority or the First Nation in terms of accessing emergency feed, helping with animal relocations, and other hazards. So again, just reiterating my comment earlier that, first and foremost, emergency management starts at the local level with you folks at the First Nation EOC or a local authority EOC. And you'll just see that these are some of the things we have also been identified to support during emergencies. Advice to the producers, working with other levels of government to coordinate livestock relocation, etc. So our branch, particularly the emergency management branch of agriculture and food, so we provide that coordination and ensure a kind of a similar role to what EMCR does across the provincial family. Our branch does that within the ministry to coordinate all the different roles that different units, etc., have related to emergency management. We lead the ministry's preparedness and response for both the lead hazards and the support. And you will often see us, especially in these support roles for wildfire and flooding, etc., working directly with EMCR, either at a provincial regional emergency operations center or PREOC, or as Ian mentioned, at the Provincial Emergency Coordination Center. And again, this is supporting you and your agricultural coordinator or whatever role you may have activated in your EOC to support agriculture. We will work with you and provide support from that PREOC or PECC level. We obviously maintain status boards and document all the regular things you would do in your own EOCs. And we do that on behalf of our ministry. So I mentioned that we also call upon other individuals in the ministry. So we can't have every skill set and expertise and knowledge within my branch. It wouldn't make sense. So we have subject matter experts. So an example of that would be our waste management engineer. So if we have an event and we unfortunately see livestock killed in the event, we need to deal with that dead stock and make sure it's properly managed and disposed of. So we have pre-identified various subject matter experts that are de facto members of our team, and we can call upon when we need that specific expertise. We also have regional specialists, so these are our regional agrologists throughout the province, and we can call upon them for surge capacity and to get special or regional specific information that my small team may not have based on where the different team members are in the in the province. And then we put out a call every year for volunteers for people that don't require any specific agricultural knowledge or expertise, and we provide them training in the incident command system to help us for major events like COVID, like the atmospheric river of 2021. So at all times, my branch has an emergency coordinator during regular business hours, and they're the person that's monitoring situations and takes the calls for any incidents that are emerging or developing. So this is our generic phone number here that you would reach that person and our generic email address. So week to week, that phone and that email is managed by whoever's sitting in the coordinator position for that week. If a request for assistant comes in after hours, that goes to myself or one of the two other excluded or leadership members of our team. And emergency management and climate readiness has those contact details and will attempt to reach us after hours and on weekends and holidays. So premises ID, so Leslie was speaking to this. So it is indeed a provincial database that essentially identifies or links all locations where poultry, livestock, and bees to specific geographic locations. So in effect, a premises is any parcel of land where livestock and animals are kept, assembled, or disposed of. So this ranges from obviously a ranch to an abattoir to a veterinary facility to exhibition and fairgrounds to zoos. So anywhere animals may go through the course of production is considered a premises. Premises ID is now mandatory. So if if you own one of, 30 odd species of animals, so it doesn't include uh, cats and dogs, but it includes pigs, ducks, llamas, alpacas. So we do have a full list explaining that. But anyone that owns that, so it's not just commercial farmers, but anyone that has those animals should register in the premises ID system. And so what that allows us to do, it allows us to have mapping and know exactly where, by the geographic coordinates, where animals are. It lists the maximum number because obviously animal numbers fluctuate through the production cycle and through the season. Uh, and so we maintain this database. There's very strong restrictions on who we can share it with and level of detail, but the legislation does allow us to share it with local authorities, First Nations, and it can be shared when you're doing planning to understand what animals are within your geographic area of jurisdiction, where they are, and allows you to conduct planning with those owners. And of course, during response, knowing where those are, how that impacts where you may set alert and order areas and recovery. So very, very important. So I encourage you, if your nation or people within your nation have animals, we encourage you to register, and that way emergency staff can help you when emergencies happen. So next, I was going to talk a little bit about some of the preparedness supports. So we do have what's called the Extreme Weather Preparedness Program for Agriculture. This provides approximately $2 million in annual cost share funding available to farm and ranch businesses, and it supports farm and ranch businesses with preparing for wildfire, for floods, for extreme heat, and now there's a new innovative stream to provide a little bit more flexibility and look at projects that may not fall in those first three categories. The other thing we've developed is an emergency guide for First Nations to support First Nations in developing and assessing their needs and developing the agricultural component of their plan. So the link's embedded here. I'll share a PDF version of this with Casey afterwards, but it's also available on our website, and it was put out in 2019, so we are planning to update this, and we'd be very keen to work with Finesse and other nations that may be interested through the updating of this document to ensure we've captured things and it addresses and supports the needs of First Nations throughout the province. Next up, just some recovery support. So agricultural producers can protect their business through our various business risk management programs. So we have one called Agri Stability. It's essentially an agricultural income protection program that looks at a producer's previous 5 years of income, and if it drops below a certain percentage, then the producer would be supported with the top up to address those ups and downs that could be caused by an emergency or a disaster. There's the agricultural wildlife program, so that deals with crop loss and damage caused by wildlife, not so specific to emergencies. There's production insurance that addresses crop loss due to weather-related events. And then finally, there's what's called Agri Recovery. It is not, this one is not a program that you sign up for in advance, but is something that the province and the federal government, if there's a major emergency disaster affecting a large segment of the sector, the province can propose an agri recovery and would work with the federal government to determine if the event meets those. And it's really designed to address extraordinary recovery costs that wouldn't be funded through some of these other supports. So those are our recovery. And so that's my presentation. So thank you for this opportunity to share. I've included here some links to our emergency management website on our ministry webpage. But obviously, if you just do a quick search for BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food, emergency management, or some similar wording, you'll find that rather than typing out this long um, link here. And then again, I just put up the generic phone number and email address so you can reach us during business hours with any concerns or whether it's incident specific, it's more about planning and preparedness. And then a little glitch here. I didn't space my words out here, but my direct email and phone number there as well, and happy to dive into any of this in greater detail with anyone that wants to have further discussion. So I will stop there and happy to stick around for any questions or comments folks may have.
Thank you very much. People can raise their hands if they have a question or a comment they'd like to share. And I put the link to the guide in the chat as well from Graham's presentation. Any questions? And if not, I have a question. Just, I wonder, Graham, if you or Ian can speak super brief about your thoughts on the role of the feds in this agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's role in emergency management. I just had a look at their website, and I'm assuming that things would be coordinated, but I'm not quite sure what's noteworthy about their role.
Yeah, the Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada does provide a lot of the funding. So, for example, I talked about Agri Recovery Framework. They would be the ones that work with the province and our business risk management branch to reach a decision whether it meets the criteria, and then it becomes a 60-40 federal provincial funding split. So they do provide funding. They do kind of serve in the background, but from my kind of 6-7 years here now with the Ministry of Agriculture, they don't typically play a direct role in the response. It's more that federal support. So, you know, the local authority, the First Nation, then that goes up to through EMCR if it's a support role, which we will assist with. Where we do see the feds play a much more direct on the ground role in emergency management is when we talk about animal disease events, where the federal government and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency are identified as the lead federal agency. So for the avian influenza, for things like foot and mouth disease or African swine fever, which are kind of top three current or pending threats to the province. There can always be others, but they take a direct role in managing the response, and we generally work in a unified command or similar approach with them. But Agriculture and Agri-Foods is more a funder. But I know they are doing work to update their plan. They realized in the COVID scenario that they didn't, address some of the food processing, food safety, supply chain stuff. So it is possible that they will, their role may be changing as they move through this evaluation and updating of their plan. And sorry if I spoke too long there.
It's all good. If there's any other questions, please feel free to raise your hand. I know there's been a lot of really good information provided by all three so far. And it's okay if not. I think that wraps up the Q&A session. So my thanks, Leslie, Ian, and Graham for the great presentations. My thanks again to Wendy for prompting us to plan this, and thank you for all the good questions and the comments. I'm just having a quick look in the chat. And just a reminder, May 28th, First Nations information session, Building Drought Resiliency. So we hope to see some of you there as well. My thanks to everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. And Casey, I'll send you an updated, finalized version of my presentation there for you to share.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you,